MMA has been around for 3 decades now, and we've seen the sport evolve from haymakers in 2 years of college wrestling to long boxing combinations and double legs from one end of the octagon to the other. The sport is progressing at an exponential rate, and like your dad, it never promised to take you with it. That is why we have an overwhelming array of one dimensional UFC fighters, to say the least. And not one dimensional in the sense that they've only mastered one martial art, but rather one aspect of it. At times, it could literally be one move, which has inspired me to find out who the one punch man of the UFC is. Before I continue, I ask that you like and subscribe to help me get to 1,000 subscribers if you enjoy the video. Firstly, we have Michael Chandler. He's one of the fighters that frustrates me the most because despite being an NCAA qualifier, he seldom uses wrestling, and his usual game plan is to get in the pocket, throw haymakers, and by the time the audience blinks, either him or his opponent is going to be laying unconscious. And it's usually him. I know he's been fighting the best of the best, but I have to hold him accountable for the time when he won the first 2 rounds against Dustin and didn't play it safe in round 3, which led to Dustin winning via rear naked choke. Who gets subbed by Dustin Poirier? In as much as Michael lost a lot of his fights due to recklessness, most of his opponents were usually better than him, whether it's Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, or Charles Oliveira, especially now that he's older. But in an alternate universe where Michael played it safe, he would have won the 3rd round against Dustin Poirier, and for that reason, I'm going to place him in the A tier. Next up, we have Michael Venom Page. His style is very interesting because there are certain aspects of it that are very dynamic, that being the footwork. I don't think there's any fighter in the UFC that can cover as much distance as MVP does with the same amount of efficiency, let alone speed. But take away all the flashy footwork and analyze the individual strikes he lands on his opponents, and you'll notice that it's usually the right hand. Even in Bellator when he was going up against Douglas Lima, what made the difference was whether or not Douglas Lima would be able to negate the right hand. Anyone who can negate that will win the fight. Now, there hasn't been anyone that's managed to do that on the feet aside from Douglas Lima, but one could call that a fluke KO. The only other way you can beat him is if you have grappling ability. And you don't even have to be a decent grappler according to UFC standards, because if you're getting controlled by Kevin Holland, I don't know what to say. I would include Ian Gary, but I think he's actually made significant improvements in his grappling, especially judging from his Carlos Prates fight and Shavkat, because he had him in a really deep rear naked choke. In as much as MVP is one dimensional, aside from Ian Gary, there hasn't been anyone that managed to crack him, so I think he deserves to be in the D tier. Next up, we have Michael Morales. He's one of the most genetically gifted fighters in the welterweight division because he has intermediate characteristics of a stocky fighter with good takedown defense and a skinny, rangy fighter with otherworldly power. And that's allowed him to get to where he is today because on paper, I just don't think he's that skilled. Looking at his style, most of the strikes he lands are straight punches, usually the 1-2 or the 2, and occasional low kicks. And he's not defensively sound. He was getting counted on multiple occasions in his fight against Max Griffin, and he wasn't making any reads. I just don't think he has a sense of urgency whenever he's in danger because when his opponents get in the pocket, he doesn't use head movement or block, he just eats it. And that can work very well against old man Gilbert. But let's say you're going up against a power puncher like JDM, you're going to lose the fight. Fights that I see him winning are against wrestlers who don't have good striking, let alone power. Because the only time I saw him get taken down was against Max Griffin and Gilbert Burns, and both times he got up immediately. And he didn't use any of the techniques JDM drilled with Craig Jones. He literally just gets up. It's really impressive doing that against Gilbert Burns because in his fight prior against JDM, he controlled him on the ground for 2 rounds straight and was winning the fight on 2 scorecards because of the control time. So for him to just negate Gilbert Burns' grappling like that is very impressive to say the least. So I see Michael Morales having a better chance at beating fighters like Sean Brady, Kamaru Usman, Kobe Covington. Leon isn't that much of a grappler, but if he did resort to grappling, I don't think he'd be able to control someone like Michael Morales. But if things were on the feet, that's a pretty interesting fight. I should actually make a video on that. With that being said, I would put Michael in the C tier because no one's been able to fraud check him. Lastly, we have Nursultan Rousey Boyv. I took a lot of interest in his career because he's 6'5" with a 76-inch reach, yet still finds a way to make welterweight. His main division is middleweight, and I think he performs a lot better there because he packs more power and he isn't weight drained. We saw how terrible he looked at welterweight against Joaquin Buckley, but then again, that might just be a courtesy of Joaquin Buckley's skill because he is undefeated in that division. My issue with Rousey Boyev is that he's inactive. And it's not that he fights once a year, but when you land as much significant strikes as he does, you might as well not show up. He lands 2.59 significant strikes per minute, which is less than any fighter in the middleweight division. And it's not just the fact that he doesn't land much, it's that when he does land, it's literally one punch, the right hand. In his fight against Joaquin Buckley, you could tell that he had that right hand caught, but he just never found home with it. I think it's because Buckley wasn't circling to the power side of Rousey Boyv, completely negating his entire game. Rousey Boyv barely landed anything on Buckley in that fight, and that's why he lost every single round, because his right hand is his bread and butter. And when you take away his bread and butter, like a kid who goes to school without it, he can't get any work done. And one thing I've noticed about him is that he's that type of dude who you don't want to share an OP move with in a video game because he will just spam it for the rest of the day. And that was him when he landed the spinning wheel kick on Dustin. He kept throwing it over and over again. So I would have to place him in the S tier because, man, this guy is so one dimensional. And he lacks movement. I don't think it's entirely his fault. He's one of those lanky guys who's not very mobile. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know who you think the One Punch Man of the UFC is in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace out.